You know what's wild about the electromagnetic spectrum? Most of it is invisible to us. You got radio waves at one end, microwaves, UV light. Then on the other end, you got gamma rays, X-rays, well, X-rays, then gamma rays. All of it exists, but our eyes can only see a small section that we call visible light. That's where ROYGBIV is. Y'all remember it from school. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. So we all know that's the rainbow. But what we probably forgot is that all those colors make up just a small portion of a huge spectrum. So I've been thinking about that and thinking about men and our emotional lives. So I started thinking about how we experience the whole range of human emotion, but we may only have language or permission for a few of them. So it's like being able to see every color in ROYGBIV, but somebody only taught you how to name red. So now everything is red. You see something blue, call it red. Green, still red. And after a while, you might forget that other colors actually exist. Or you still see them, but you stop trusting yourself enough to name what you see. So I think a lot of men live like that emotionally. We feel all of it: hurt, afraid, lonely. We experience joy, excitement, tenderness, embarrassment, all of it. But we get very few words that feel safe to express those things. So I'm mad. Man, I'm stressed, tired. Nah, I'm straight. And the classic, I'm good. So hurt gets called frustration. Anxiety becomes stress. Overwhelm gets reduced to, I'm just tired. Everything else, I'm good. That doesn't mean we don't feel it. It just means we've learned how to translate a full spectrum of emotion and expression into 3 or 4 acceptable words. And I think there's a real cost to that. So I also built something to go along with this episode. It's called What's Good. It's an AI-assisted reflection tool I created as part of the Grab Your Why universe. It lives at grabyourwhy.com/what's good. I'll talk more about that towards the end, but I wanted to name it early because the episode is about the emotional spectrum, and What's Good is a tool to help you actually explore that spectrum. It helps you slow down, name what might be underneath what you're feeling, and develop more language for what's happening inside. Because to me, the more language I've developed for my own emotions, the more options I've had for what to do with them. So there was a time when I might have said I was frustrated. Now I may be able to recognize that what I'm actually feeling or experiencing is hurt. There was a time when I would have said, I just got a lot going on. Now I can definitively say I'm overwhelmed. I can name anxiety, and I can say I feel out of control. Those differences all matter, because if I believe I'm angry, I'm probably going to respond out of anger. I might get loud, might shut down, I might get defensive, I might be a little cold. But if I realize I'm hurt and that anger might be sitting on top of that hurt, I may need something completely different. I might need to talk. I might need to sit with what I'm feeling. I may need to write. I may need reassurance. I might even need to ask for help. So the feeling was already there. Naming it gave me better information about what was happening inside of me, and that gave me a chance to respond differently. So that's why I keep coming back to the idea that feelings are data. That's it. A feeling tells you something, just something. It might not tell you everything. It's probably not completely accurate on its own, but it gives you information. And the more accurate the information is, the more choices you have. So if every feeling gets translated into anger, you're going to respond out of anger. If everything gets called stress, you may never realize that some of what you're carrying is grief or fear or loneliness or whatever. And each of those might require something different from you. So when I talk about expanding our emotional language, I'm really talking about gaining access to more of ourselves. The emotions are already there. The feelings already exist. The language is what helps us to see them. The electromagnetic spectrum wasn't created when scientists developed instruments that could detect radio waves or infrared. Radio waves are already there moving. Infrared already existed. X-rays could already pass through your body. The instruments gave us access to information that our eyes couldn't pick up on their own. And I think emotional language works similarly. So a feelings wheel can be an instrument. Therapy is an instrument. Prayer is an instrument. A real conversation with someone you trust, that can be an instrument too. And now, for me, what's good is another instrument. It won't tell you who you are. It's not going to diagnose you. And it definitely won't fix your life. But it can give you a place to start when you know something is there and you don't quite have the words for it yet. I think it's important to keep all this in the framing of your relationship with yourself. Because I can see how this argument could easily get flipped into a conversation about how men need to show up better for everybody else. Be a better father, a better partner, a better friend, all the things. And all that matters. But before you even get there, you have to be able to sit with yourself long enough to figure out what's actually going on. Can I acknowledge that I'm hurt without immediately trying to be tough? Can I acknowledge that, man, I'm afraid without feeling like that fear makes me less of a man? Can I admit that I'm lonely, that I want reassurance, that something embarrassed me? Can I feel joy and excitement before I try to play it cool? That's part of who we are. We're human beings before we're anything to anybody else. Before you're the provider, the protector, the leader, or the man in the room, you're human. And you are in a relationship with yourself first. We are in relationship with ourselves first. I think a lot of us learn how to perform a version of ourselves before we actually figure out who we are. And that sucks. Because we know how to appear strong. We know how to say we good. We know how to keep it moving and make a joke, act like we're unaffected by all the shit. But do you actually know what's happening inside of you? And do you trust yourself enough to name it? That's where permission comes in. See, when we're kids, permission is something other people give us. It's always external. Hey, Mom, can I go outside? Dad, can I go play? Can I stay up late? Miss Trinidad, can I go to the bathroom? Mr. Wallace, can I get some water? We learn early that somebody else decides what we're allowed to do. But we're also picking up messages about what we're allowed to feel, especially as Black boys. We're constantly being told, sometimes directly and sometimes in more subtle ways, what we can feel, what we can enjoy, what we can express, and who we can become. So maybe you love dancing, but your friends clown you. Shut that dream down quick. Maybe you were a little sensitive. Somebody kept telling you to toughen up. Maybe you cried easily, and somewhere along the way, you learned that crying was just embarrassing. Maybe you got excited about things, but people made you feel corny for caring that much. Those moments teach you where the boundaries are. They teach you which parts of yourself feel safe to show and which parts might get laughed at, punished, or misunderstood. And after a while, you start moving like those rules are real, even when nobody is saying them out loud anymore. Then you grow up. Now you're a grown man. You're making your own money, taking on responsibilities, making moves, making decisions. But nobody tells us that at some point, permission has to become internal. At some point, we have to decide what we're going to allow in our own lives. You have to decide whether the version of masculinity you inherited is large enough to hold your whole life. There are grown men still waiting for somebody to give them permission to be who they already are. We're looking for permission from our fathers, our friends, the women in our lives, other men. And in a lot of cases, we're still looking for permission from the younger version of us who learned all those rules in the first place. But the shift is realizing I have to give myself permission now. I can give myself permission to cry. I can admit that I'm hurt. I can say I'm overwhelmed. I can ask for help. I can be excited without trying to make it look cool. Bro, we can give ourselves permission to enjoy something even if the people around us don't understand it. I can give myself permission to explore who I am without waiting for everybody else to approve it. I dropped a video recently where I said I will schedule my cries. I meant that. Sometimes I can feel that I need a release. Nothing has to be wrong. My life doesn't have to be falling apart. I may just recognize that I've been carrying a lot. So I'll tell myself, all right, handle what you need to today and tonight. Get in that shower and let it out. Cry. Release it. And I get it. We have other ways we do this through sports and other physical ways that we release these things. Maybe you just need to add some more things to your repertoire. But I give myself permission to do that in addition to the other things. And I think that's important because I'm not waiting for somebody else to give me permission. I'm not waiting for something to be a crisis before I allow myself to feel it. Nowadays, I can notice what's happening sooner. I can respond before it builds up and starts leaking out in ways I really don't want. And giving yourself permission doesn't mean every feeling needs to be expressed everywhere. Every emotion doesn't need an audience, and every person doesn't need access to every part of you. Sometimes the feeling belongs in prayer or a journal or therapy. I'm gonna keep coming back to that. Sometimes you just need to acknowledge it to yourself. I've been emotionally expressive before. I've worn my heart on my sleeve, and I can look back and recognize that there were moments when I took up a lot of emotional space because of what I was going through. So I'm not saying you need to say everything you feel the second you feel it. I'm saying you need enough access to yourself to choose what you do with it. So I can feel fragile without deciding I'm a fragile man. I can feel afraid without letting that fear make every decision for me. I can feel hurt without trying to hurt somebody back. So a feeling gives me information. Then I can decide what I want to do with that information and how I want to carry that feeling. And I think the cost of never doing that is bigger than just holding in some feelings. I think the cost is an unlived life. We can have this full internal life and still only live a fraction of it. People may know your strength, but never know your softness. They may know your jokes, but never really know your joy. They may know everything we provide and have no idea what we need. And even deeper than that, we may never fully know those parts of ourselves either. Some men will feel the full spectrum of human emotion and still spend most of their lives living inside 3 or 4 acceptable feelings. Man, that's heavy to me. And I don't want that for us. I definitely don't want that for Black boys. Black boys learn very early which parts of themselves people reward and which parts may get them clowned, punished, or labeled. Be strong. Don't cry. Don't act scared. Don't get too excited. Don't let anybody play with you. That's a narrow space to live in. Strength is part of me. I value my strength. I'm proud of my resilience. But strength should be something I can access. It shouldn't be the only room I know how to live in. And this reaches beyond emotion. There are other parts of us that may have gone unexplored. Ideas, interests, ambitions, things we want to create. Versions of ourselves we haven't given real space to. I believe multiple futures exist for Black boys and Black men. I believe the more of yourself you can access, the more futures for yourself you can imagine. If I believe I'm only valuable when I'm strong, I might build a life where I never get to put anything down. If I believe my only purpose is to provide, I might create a life where everybody benefits from me except me. If I believe I have to be one thing, I may never find out what else I could have become. That old question, what do you want to be when you grow up? That feels way too small to me now. One thing, one title, one role for the rest of your life. Most of us are going to become more than once. So maybe the question is, who are you becoming? What do you want to create? What parts of yourself haven't you explored yet? And what futures might open up if you give yourself permission to access more of who you already are? The emotional spectrum is one place to start, because the more of yourself you can see, the more intentionally you can decide what you want to do with your life. And that brings me back to what's good, because sometimes a blank page is hard. Sometimes journal about your feelings sounds good in theory, and then you sit down and you might not know where to start. So I built a starting point. What's Good lives at grabyourwhy.com/what's good. You open it, you can start wherever you are. You can respond to what's good, like literally, what's good? What's been happening in life? What's been on your mind? Let's explore the good. Or you can go to the other prompt. Who or what got me fucked up? I got that prompt from Brian Lamar Stokes. He's a licensed therapist who shared it as a journaling prompt for men and fathers. And it's funny, but it's real. Because sometimes that's the easier doorway. Sometimes it's hard to say, I feel hurt. But it's easy to say, man, let me tell you who got me fucked up. And once you start there, you might find out something else is underneath. Maybe it's disrespect. Maybe it's disappointment. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's grief. Or maybe you're tired of carrying something by yourself. That's what What's Good is built to help with. You can type what's on your mind. As you share, the tool reflects possible feelings that might be underneath. On your phone, those feelings will pop up as you go. On a desktop or laptop, there's a feelings grid on the side that shifts based on what you're sharing. You can click the feelings that fit. You can keep talking. You can ask it to summarize what you shared. You can end the session whenever you want. So this isn't meant to replace therapy, and it's not meant to diagnose you. It's more of a mirror. It's a starting point, a way to practice naming what's inside of you before it turns into something else. So when this episode ends, don't just think, that was interesting. Don't just think, man, that was a hell of an episode. But go try it. Go to grabyourwhy.com/what's good. Drop what's on your mind. Start with what's good, or start with who got you up. See what feelings might be underneath the first thing you say. Give yourself permission to name one thing more honestly. And if it feels right, share it with somebody you trust. I'd especially challenge you to share it with another Black man. Now, every feeling doesn't need to become a group project, but sometimes when you give yourself permission, you create permission for somebody else too. Your honesty can become the evidence that he's allowed to be honest. And maybe the feeling is just the beginning. Maybe there are other parts of you waiting to be named, other parts waiting to be experienced, other parts that can help you imagine a future wider than the one you inherited. The limits you were taught to see are not the limits of what exists within you. So grab your why. Peace.